I'm Chris McDonough, a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. Aloha, everybody, and welcome to the interview room. So grateful everybody's here on this wonderful Sunday evening together. Man, oh man, as I always say, have we got another show for you. But tonight, it's going to be part two. We kind of ran out of time. We had Manny and Fawn on last time, and we had Sammy here. But tonight we've got Chula Vista Canine Officer Sean Myers. It's going to be joining with us, and hopefully we get to hear a couple of war stories. And Manny's going to answer some Q&A as we go forward. So let me tell you a little bit about why we're here. Because of you and all of our subscribers, our Patreon members, our TIR family members. We're so grateful for each and every one of you, and for our mods, Miss Sophia, our leader, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Teresa Mulligan, and Stephanie Herb. Thank you all so much. We cannot do this without you. As you know, we bring you, I think, probably the best true crime information out there. We like to stick to facts, and we like to talk to folks on the ground. So I could have thought of nobody else in the dog business training police dogs than Manny Villanueva and his son Fawn, and of course their sister and their mom. It's a family business called Man Canine in San Diego. But they've been training dogs. Manny's been training dogs for almost 40 plus years, and he's probably the top dog trainer, not only in San Diego County, but in the nation when it comes to police service dogs. And then, of course, he deals with these kind of characters back here with Mr. Buddy, and he helped you out there too. But he's going to tell us tonight about the who, what, when, wheres, and whys behind canine training, and what got him involved. And then he's going to answer some of your questions. And then, of course, again, we've got Sean here tonight to go into some detail about what it's like out there on the street. So without further ado, I'm going to bring these guys up. Mr. Manny Villanueva and his son Fawn, and of course, Officer Sean Myers. Let's show him a little love in our chat over here and tell him where you're at here. We're going to watch it light up. Let's everybody do a roll call and weigh in and show a little love here. I absolutely love that song. Scotland's in the house already. Ontario, Canada. Man, oh man. Kentucky is in the house. And then, of course, we've got Michigan, Iowa. So we get an opportunity to talk to the world again tonight. And, of course, it's early, right when we first kick off. We get maybe 300 to 800 people, and then it just starts to really build. Once they find out Sean's in the house here, it's over.
They'll all go away.
Yeah.
Hang up.
They're, the big easy. So, Manny and Fawn, great to have you guys here. Sean, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And I really appreciate you taking my invitation to come back, because I just thought your first interview was an absolute home run, and we learned so much about you and all the great things that you've been done. I mean, your mentor at the time was Fawn Johnson, and tell folks a little bit about Fawn real fast, and then what I'm going to do is bring everybody up to speed by showing your little movie again. It's about 10 minutes, and then folks who are new to us can see what we left off with, and then we'll get into some, I think, some pretty neat stuff about these characters. Where did he go? He already disappeared. He said, "I need your help already."
I know.
So yeah, fill us in real fast. Tell us a little bit about really what drove you towards helping and serving this country in the way that you have.
Well, it all really started. I think I was just born to work with animals, and my sister tells me a story that when we used to go to the Chicago Library, I would always head towards the dog section, read about dogs all the time about dogs. And she would tell me, "Can't you read about anything else?" I'm like, I don't know what else to read about. I love this. And this went on for a few years, and I obviously I couldn't have a dog in Chicago. So growing up in Chicago in an apartment, my dad said that you're crazy. We're not going to have any dogs here. And one day, my sister wakes me up on a Saturday and says, "Hey, there's a dog in the stairwell." What? Wake up. It's a dog. I ran out in pajamas and I see this dog up, a lab, a chocolate lab. And I said, "Oh my God." And I'm hugging him. I'm stealing ham from my mom's fridge and giving him ham. And I go, "Okay, you're going to be called Labby." So I didn't even know what to call this dog. And I put my belt on him and I snuck him all the way up to the 4th floor where my sister used to live. And we were on the 3rd floor, and then I kept feeding him and I ran him outside. So finally, my dad discovers that something strange is going on here. Why you keep going to the hallway?
Getting ham.
Yeah, and they go going to the fridge. So he goes, "What in the world is that?" I go, "That is a dog. I love him. Let's keep him." He says, "You're crazy. There's no dogs in this house or in this apartment. Let's get him out of here." So I took Labby and I said, what I do is get rid of him. I don't know. So I took him all the way down to this grocery store, and it's like about 10 blocks from the house. So I'm crying and, telling him everything's going to be fine. And I walk into the grocery store and I tell him to stay. That dog I don't know if he knew anything, right? But the dogs did stay right by the first entrance. And I snuck around the second door and ran home. And I ran home and, I'm crying. And after like 3 or 4 hours, we happened to drive by the grocery store. And we were at a red light and the dog is still there.
Oh, and my goodness.
As people were walking out of the grocery store, he walked over to everybody walking out and sniff him. And he would go lay down again. And he did that. We came back like 3 or 4 hours later. It was about 7 and 8 o'clock at night. And the dog was still there. At that time, I saw that loyalty, and I just fell in love with what the feeling of being connected to a dog. And then after that, I saw the Doberman Gang. I'm not sure you remember that movie. Some of you might be too young to remember the Doberman Gang, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the group of Dobermans actually rob a bank.
Yep.
I was fascinated. So that's when I thought I want to train dogs, because in the movie they show how they train these Dobermans. And I was obsessed. I was addicted to dogs at that point. And I started my business in Guadalajara at 18. I took a little course in Chicago. Then I came to San Diego to breed a Doberman because I was showing dogs in Mexico. And a groomer friend of mine said, "Hey, do you want to meet a famous dog trainer? He's a grandfather of police dogs. He's trained police dogs since 1950.
Right.
And I said, "Oh, yes, please, let me meet this man." And I consider myself a dog trainer at that point. I was training for about 6 years. I walk into Mr. Johnson's office and I sit there, and they dropped me off. It was my ride. And she said, "Yeah, I'll pick you up at 6, 7 o'clock after work." So I'm sitting in his office and I'm turning the little, I'm not sure what they're called, picture frames. And I'm looking at it, kind of turning it and and I started looking up and down, 1948, 1947, 1946. I'm going, oh my God. And then I see police dogs there. I was so intimidated. I said, oh God, I'm running out. There's
Out of your
no
league.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to call myself a dog trainer with this man. And Mr. Fon Johnson actually was one of the few people in the United States that was training police dogs and developed a lot of techniques. And he learned from the trainer that trained the Doberman gang, Carl Spitz.
Wow.
So it's amazing. So I would ask him, Mr. Johnson, how did you learn how to train police dogs and protection dogs? And he told me, he said, I used to pick this old man's brain. He was from Germany. I said, who was he? Carl Spitz. I go, holy cow. Oh my gosh. I idolized that guy too. So Mr. Johnson took me under his wing and actually made me, push me. And I really learned to respect him because he was a perfectionist.
Yes, he was.
Right. And he was one of these men that actually would look at you and handle a dog. And he would really never tell you, that was great. Good. Good job. He would just walk away. Because
how I know he was a perfectionist, Manny?
How?
Because you would be the guy that would say, do it again. No, not right. Am I right, Sean? How many times have you heard that?
Still doing things again and again
Right.
and again.
Exactly. No, you did it wrong. Dog did it right. You do it again.
That's what I would say. If something happened, it was because you did it, not the dog.
Yeah.
That's right. So go ahead, finish your thought. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's great because that's how I learned that, we could always do it better. And the dog only is going to give us as much as we put into him. And it's funny because at one point I was training, thousands of dogs at this point. And Mr. Johnson said, hey, by the way, he said, you should go and train a dog for AKC, American Kennel Club, compete in obedience. And there was a dog that he sold to the sheriff's department. Tough dog. I don't remember. You remember, Chris? His name was Red. It's a red Doberman that I had. And actually nasty, tough, strong, powerful dog. Had difficult time on call-offs or verbally outing for the officer. And he was, I remember sitting in his van and he said, hey, there's a dog show next month. I need you to compete. You need to learn how to work in that area. And I thought, I can't do it. I don't have a dog. What am I going to take? He said, take Red. And I said, Red? I go, he's a police dog. He said, oh, you mean you can't train him? You know how that works, right? Reverse psychology is like, oh, heck yeah, I'm going to train this dog. So he said, all right, get him ready in a month. So here I am training this tough as nails dog. He even said he was one of the toughest dogs he's ever worked with, right? So I go, how am I going to get him? He has to be pet. The judge is going to come up and pet the dog. He has to work around other dogs. He has to work around people. How in the world am I going to title his dog? So I was talking to him with the man that he actually broke records in AKC on dogs earning perfect scores when he was a professional handler for AKC. Wow. So his level, his standard was extremely high. So here is
that picture of you on your website where Fawn, is that your dad in that?
Where it's the one where the Doberman's jumping over and he has the leash?
Yeah, well, and I think it looks like also there's a one of the judges is looking at the dog and your dad is standing there with that Dobie. Is that Red?
It's probably Red, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably Red then. Yes, yes.
I'm pretty sure it's that one because we have two pictures that I know of Red. It was that one. I'm pretty sure it's that one, and then one of him doing a hurdle.
Okay.
Yeah. So we start competing, and son of a gun, I titled the dog. And what's funny about that, I worked my tail off with that dog, and we were in a show, and we're competing. And the judge is giving me really good compliments, and he's like, "You're doing great." Out of 200 points, I got 198. Wow. I go, "Oh my goodness, I'm taking first place again." And here comes this fat Rottweiler in the ring, and I'm seeing him perform. I'm going, "What in the world?" So after all, she got 199. So I got second place. And Mr. Johnson, I walk up to Mr. Johnson, I go, I'm gonna go take a picture with my dog with a second place. He said, "No, you're not. You only take pictures when you win first place." It's like, oh,
Oh man,
But-
that's funny.
yeah, but that's who he was, and he trained so many dogs, tens of thousands of dogs. When I met him, he was up there at about 20,000 dogs that he had trained. And he knew about grooming, about showing, about police dogs, about the detection, you name it. He was a master in all these things. So I was fortunate to learn from him and actually absorb everything he would tell me. And like I treat Sean pretty much the same way. I'm never satisfied. Right, even how he throws his ball, I'm not satisfied when he rewards a dog. I couldn't even throw it right, Sean. You hit the dog on the head,
That's awesome. Well, Fawn was definitely, and I mean, he's a legend, and you now have been carrying that torch for, I knew you when you were a youngster like me, and because you trained me. And you obviously untrained Irk because he had a lot of bad habits, and then you kind of plugged us together, and that was back in the day, and ultimately ended up on the street with him for about 3 years, just about 3.5, and then he swallowed that. I don't know if you remember, he swallowed that algae.
Yes.
And he had a heart attack and died in the backseat of my car. And we raced him to the Dr. Pallen's car down on Oceanside Boulevard. And anyway, then I got Sando, who was an absolute lunatic. But that's when I got transferred out of canine into the bureau. But Fawn is a legend, and now you have passed that on to Fawn.
Yeah.
He's sitting next to you.
It's full circle.
He's carrying that mantle now and running that side of the business, but you're still engaged day to day, and I know you will to your last dying breath, because I know who you are and I know how you are. But you're keeping guys like Sean, safe on the street out there, and you're doing it to thousands of guys. And the thumbnail is a picture of you guys up in Huntington Beach doing, and Fawn, you're in that picture too.
Yeah,
And,
for that.
and doing some training with helicopter training. So I want to get into that, and I want to get into Sean. I want to hear, some of your thoughts here, and, tell us a little bit about your career and your relationship with Manny and Fawn, and just, Man Canine as a whole, because, they're, in my book, they're the best of the best. And so I got a little thing that I did last time, but for those folks that are just joining us, we're going to play it again. And it was just a little short tribute to Manny and his career. But in here, you can see his dedication. So I'm just going to do this real fast. And if you've seen this before, get your Kleenex out, because, I caught Fawn, just wiping away the last time. I mean, for like a half hour, I was like, dude, you're going to have to get it together. We're going to have to go through this together. That's your dad out there. Okay. So, stand by. Let me run this up, and we'll watch it together.
That was nice. Wow. Lots of memories. Yeah. It seems like yesterday, too.
Chris, you're muted.
Chris is muted.
Yeah,
You go.
there he is.
Well, yeah, of course I'm muted. I meant to do that,
Yeah.
as Pee Wee Herman says. I'm not crying. Or who's crying?
Yeah.
Lots of great memories there, and
Yeah, absolutely.
lots of just cool stuff there. I mean, and in this world today, uh, you know, if there is ever a time that those teams are needed, the dog handler and the dog, and is today in this world. I mean, you guys know you're on the front line. Sean is out there all the time, and so I want to get him in here real fast. And Sean, introduce yourself. Tell him I know you're. Tell him what agency you're with. I'm sorry we showed a lot of Oceanside in this one, and there was some Carlsbad, Huntington Beach, but I did see some CVPD stuff on there, buddy. And I was hoping to get a glimpse of you in there somewhere. But tell
They don't
everybody a
show
little
those
bit about
videos.
you and about your career, brother.
Yeah, so my name's Sean Myers. I've been with the Chula Vista Police Department for a little over 16 years now. I've been a canine handler for about 7 years now, and I'm on my third dog. I've worked with Manuel for, I think, about 12 years. We were actually just talking about this the other day of how long I've actually been working or dealing with Manuel, and my mess ups and screw ups. And Manuel tells me what I did wrong for at least 12 years.
Awesome. And now you've had 3 dogs.
Mhm.
And Manny, did you shift them back up to you? Did you have a chance to choose those dogs, or how did that all come about?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, they were patrol dogs. It was one dog that was experienced. I believe Sean was the second handler, and then he got a brand new dog after that dog retired. But I had part in selecting all the dogs. Yes, one male, one shepherd, and one lab. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really? Is the lab a dope dog?
He is.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the training methods, Manny and Fawn. And, and let's talk about the different gear that everybody wears. I mean, I don't know if everybody is quite familiar with, the crop and what's the purpose of that. What is the dog psychology in relationship to that? So let's break that down between you two guys up in the top up there. What do you think?
Mhm.
Okay, so what it comes down to, we believe in a method that actually rewards the dog in its training, in the process of training. You have people that only believe in positive reinforcement, in the sense they're always constantly rewarding the dog, which is we always attempt to find and discover which item, or if it's food, if it's ball or treats, is going to pay the dog off for his performance after we condition the dog. That doesn't mean we don't apply corrections. In police dog world, when it comes down to patrol, we need to apply some corrections. When it goes back to detection, all of that is positive. A dog has to love to search, and he does that because he eventually is going to get paid. What is his payment? What do you pay? What do you give your dog, Sean? What type of reward is it?
Treats. He just gets treats.
Yeah. So he gets treats. A lot of dogs are satisfied with the ball. With his dog, you throw the ball and he looks at it. He goes, "Okay, you have anything better?" He looks over. He's like, "Yeah, is that it?" So we found that the treat works great. Other dogs is a tug toy. But it goes back to that individual dog. The way we train dogs, and Fan knows because he's trained hundreds and hundreds of dogs, is that it's based on the dog's temperament more than anything. It's not the size or the breed, it's what that dog loves. And we base it on that. So once we discover that, it makes our life easier. Anything else? Huh?
Well, yeah, there's just a lot of motivators for working, and we're trying to speak the language of the dog. And so a large...
You got a dog under you, or
Yeah.
Say no, he's like,
speaks the language of the dog?
Yeah, so you're speaking the language of the dog, and a large portion of saying yes is kind of what we're talking about here. We go, good job. We throw him a toy, throw him a treat. So you're discovering what he considers pleasant in his day-to-day life. and then you try to figure out how to say the word no. And so a lot of the equipment is to say the word no, and it's just a communication device for us to speak that language for the dog, letting him know if that's, I don't want you to do that right now, and then we put him either his nose back on the ground or put him back to work with the motivators that we've discovered in the dog already. So it's just a system of compulsion along with the reward system. So that's normally how we get, I'd probably say 99% of our training done is figuring out what the dog likes and then how to get the dog to do it when we tell them to, and not really give them the opportunity to just run around and disobey. But your standard dogs, they run, it depends on the dog and the department too. You have some dogs that run vests and then other dogs don't run vests. They have slip chains, whatever they need to use in the field, but it really just varies from dog to dog because the equipment changes a lot.
That's interesting because in the early days, the dogs didn't have Kelvar vest or anything like
Mhm.
that. And it's really progressed a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so, Sean, are they wearing like cameras now for the canines out in the field?
No, just the officer has the body worn cameras. The dogs don't.
Okay. But Manny, are there departments out there that are putting deploying cameras on their canines?
Yes, and some of the SWAT operations, because now you have actually cameras that will give you the picture live, and they're able to down the dog in a certain hallway area or down the in a bedroom. So they're mostly used there. The average patrol dog doesn't have that luxury of having a camera, because also a lot of the patrol dogs are used in an instant. You just pull your dog out of the car and quick because you happen to see the bad guy right in front of you. When you have a specialized unit like a SWAT operator, will actually have the time to put the camera on, set the dog up, and bring him into the scene. But in most cases, they run with a vest or with like Fan was saying, a slip chain as well. And it goes back like people say, "Oh, do you ever correct the dogs?" And we believe that a police dog should be dependable. Okay, a police dog should not have a choice to disobey. Some dogs might look at a rabbit. I remember a story with a very good handler. I told him, "Hey, Kendrick," I said, "Don't ever cut your dog loose. He's a brand new dog." And I said, "Don't cut him loose to give him a potty break." And I remember he's like, "Well, let me see. It's all fenced in. It's 2:00 in the morning. Yeah, we're fine. Okay, take a break." And then the dog sees a rabbit. He's gone. Yeah. Oh my God, here, buddy, here. He thought, how am I going to explain this? He said, I didn't want to give you a call at 2 a.m, Manuel, but I didn't know what to do. And I'm calling him and calling him and calling. And finally,
Is that the one that was found down by the railroad tracks?
Yeah. So
I
he
know whose dog that was, and we're not
Yeah.
going to mention it, but go ahead.
Yeah. So he
It
starts
wasn't mine,
No.
for the record. Go ahead.
Exactly. So eventually the dog comes up, they locate the dog and everything's fine. But the thing is that we don't have volunteer rabbits, that we could train them to prove the dog of rabbits. So those are, now we learned from back in the days, like we need to work on dependability, right? What the dog has to realize that if I tell him to go search a certain area, he has to obey or come back to me if he's chasing a rabbit, coyote, squirrel, whatever it is. So our training has really stepped up, and now the dogs, I see that they're a lot more dependable because we understand dogs a lot better than we did, 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, but Sean has, has some experience with that, and we give him a lot of love, and at the same time, we teach the dog that, hey, I'm still in charge here. I know, you love to do all of this because they're born to be police dogs, but you still have to obey me because my life might depend on you obeying me or somebody else's life.
Interesting. So, Sean, you've had opportunity with 3 dogs to deploy. Tell us what what's your highlight. Let's start at the let's always start at the top, and then we'll chip our way down. But what's your highlight, brother?
I've had the 3 dogs. I've been very grateful to have 3 dogs, and to have a combination of the 3. My first dog was, like Manuel said, I was a second handler. So the dog was a complete veteran. If he could have drove himself to the radio calls, he would have. He was just that good of a dog. The handler before me did a phenomenal job with him. So I remember I got him recently out of the academy, and we got a call of a burglary at a like a steel mill where they have really precious minerals and steels inside this building. And one of the officers got there, saw the guy as he was going in the building. He took off and he was inside of a yard. And from there, I did a track with the dog. And he was on it. You could tell he was on it. He was on the scent the way he was going. And I remember big spools of wire, probably 20, 30 feet high. And he goes around the corner and he's gone. And I've got him on the 30-foot leash. I'm like, holy cow, where'd he go? And I come around the corner. He's on this guy's arm. And I'm like, oh my God, my dog's biting this guy. And then I'm like, I got to do something now because it's my dog. You just kind of caught up in the moment. And so I'm like, hey, get on the ground. So the guy gets on the ground and I'm like, Lucas, here. Lucas pops off, comes back to me. And I was like, wow, that was really cool.
That's awesome. And so, Manny, walk us through and Fawn, walk us through how you guys. Let's talk about the different types of dogs in terms of their skill set. Meaning, there's protection. There's right. They do a lot of building searching. They do a lot of search. Item searching, a lot of obedience and all that stuff. But break that down for a service dog. Why those skills are kind of the basic toolkit for the animal to know, because I think any handler can adapt to the skills, but why do you guys put into those dogs those types of skills?
The number one use for the dog is considered a locating tool to locate a person or an item or narcotics, in that sense. So their nose is tremendous. It's very, very valuable. The second one is the dog actually helps to deter. It's a really good visual for the bad guy to see this dog barking at him, right? So it really deters out the person from going crazy or aggressive or becoming aggressive. So that's second use. And then the last would be the apprehension, obviously. So working to where the dog learns how to search a building, search an area, can then tracking and trailing, article searching. These are all in our basic courses. And the basic courses, when the officer goes through the academy, we have to make sure the dogs are 100% dialed in, understands what his job is. So it's to locate, in this case, a person, and then either alert by barking, or if it's like he's accessible and just laying there and waiting for the bad guy to ambush him, the dog has to engage at that point. But definitely with the use of his nose, it's the most valuable tool that the officer has to save his life in many cases. A lot of officers get shot because they, while conducting trailing or tracking, because they do not know how to read the dog's proximity alert. So we work in our academy. We teach a handler how to read a positive or negative when the dog does pick up a scent from a bad guy. But these are part of it. You want to talk about the post requirements as well?
Yeah. So the post standards, there's a building search in a couple of different areas. A building search.
So tell everybody what post is. It's Peace Officer Standards Training.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so that was established way back in the day. My dad, and I think Mr. Johnson, was on the board to try to develop those standards for all the police canines. And that standard for us is the very, very basic standard. And our academy goes a little bit deeper than just the post standards for it. But kind of what he talked about is the primary source of the dog or the main use for the dog is going to be a locating tool. So a lot of our academy is based on that, locating the dogs, reading the positives and negatives of his nose, whether he's on scent or not, because we're teaching the dogs to search for odors that have no meaning to the dog inherently. Because people, they could care less about people. They want to go chase a rabbit, or they smell, depending on the breed, they smell certain foods or certain animals, and instinctually they want to go and turn that way. But we have to train them, say, no, you're going to be on the scent that I told you to be on. And we give that scent meaning, whether it's narcotics, explosives, or people. And so the large portion of our academy deals with that, using it as a locating tool. Then the third use is the apprehension. So that's when we do the bite work and all the other things of, like what Sean said, going in, how to get your dog off the bite and all that. But that's more secondary as opposed to the actual searching is more what we deal with.
We concentrate a lot on control. So our academy is also obedience. The dog has to work on leash and off leash. as well. The dog has to learn to release the bite immediately. The dog has to learn to call off, right? That's one of the toughest exercises, right? You know that, Chris.
Yep.
And Sean knows that, right? It's to test the dog to where you send the dog, okay, go chase that bad guy. And then before he ever gets there, you tell him to stop and come back to you. And it really taxes the dog's level of control and stress it, because the dog's already geared instinctively to go chase this thing that's running away. And then you say, no, stop. And obviously we teach the dog that it's better if he comes to you, and then he gets rewarded because he gets a ball or a tug, and then dogs are really balanced in their response to that. So there's all these exercises are, like Vaughn said, post recommendation, but we go beyond that point. The breeds that we use, the Belgian Malinois, okay, and the first dog that I trained was a Belgian Malinois. This lady from La Jolla up from Fanjan brings in this dog, and I didn't know what they were. Mr. Johnson obviously knew, and this dog comes in, and I looked at him. I go, guy, he looks like a shepherd. He was like about 56 pounds, and he walks in, and he yellowish, kind of tan dog with a little black face. I go, he's kind of cute, but I never thought anything of him. He was intimidating like some of these shepherds that we had at that time. 120-pound dog, right? So we set him up. Mr. Johnson, the ladies brought this dog from France as a puppy, and she couldn't control him. He's like crazy as hell in the backyard. And she chews everything, destroys the spa, and tears up everything. He's like, I had to get rid of him, she said. Mr. Johnson, all right, we could test him. So I get in my gear and come around the corner and just run at this little dog. He turns around and goes right at me. And then when he goes at me, he doesn't bark like a normal dog. He's a little yapper, yap, 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 in really high pitch. But he did not back down at all. Just went right at me. I shot the gun, the blanks, and went down his throat, and he just bit me without any training.
Wow.
So that was my first experience with the Malinois, and he went to Chula Vista. And Chula Vista had that dog.
Good.
Yeah,
That's where he belongs.
He's
a Maligator.
Yeah. He was he had an outstanding career. He got shot by accidentally.
Wait, tell that story. You just, what in the world? John or Manny, who knows the story? What happened?
Manuel knows the story.
Okay, Manny, what happened?
So what happened, they're coming onto this bad guy, and this bad guy, it was a hot stop, and they had the van. And so just miscommunication between the officers. So the handler sends the dog inside the vehicle to clear it, but the slider on the side was open. Another officer was approaching, and the dog comes out. So he thought it was a suspect's dog that he kind of, told him to sick him.
Sure.
So when the dog comes out, he sees him and he shoots him.
Oh, so it was an accident. Okay,
accident. Good. So he goes right through him, and the dog just stopped at that point, and the handler calls him, here. The dog goes to him, and they rush him to the emergency hospital, and he recovers 100%.
Wow.
So what's funny about that is that he comes back to service, and because he had a cast for about maybe 2 months, I believe, 2 or 3 months. So because it was a habit now to run like this, kind of with his right paw out or leg out. So he runs 100 miles an hour, and his little right leg would go in a circle, never stop, never lost a beat, and would come in and hit the heck out of you at 100 miles an hour. He would launch in the air. He had full recovery, and that dog had like 9 lives because back in the day, the windows were down. Remember how the windows were down?
Absolutely.
And there was a pursuit, and the officer sent a pursuit, and the dog, he makes a turn. Dog falls out of the car. The dog, he runs over the dog.
Oh my gosh, this dog is
nuts. And the dog, and he stops because he doesn't hear the dog barking. He turns around. He just felt the little bump, and the dog shakes it off and jumps in the window. Jumps back in the car, and he checks him. All right, you're good. Let's go. And they take off again.
Yeah, and they go get a bite.
Yeah.
that same call.
That dog had like 9 lives, like a cat. He should have been a cat. Yeah. So, but that was my first introduction to Malinois, and Mr. Johnson started importing after that Hollandaise herders, Belgian Malinois, some shepherds. and then we got into Shepherd. We tried Rottweilers. We had Rottweilers in national cities at sheriff's department. And the funny thing about a Rottweiler, powerful dog, strong as an ox. But I remember one of the officers says, "Hey, Manuel, I'm having an issue." Dog would bite if he was the bad guy was about 20 feet away from him. So he had this dream call. Bad guy just stabbed a few people, takes a run in the middle of the field, like a scenario, like a training scenario. He goes, "Oh my gosh, stop or I'll send the dog." That guy looks over, keeps running, and he tells, "Here." The dog jumps out the window. He's chasing the bad guy. 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards. And then suddenly the dog stops. The handler is running behind his dog, and he passes the dog. The handler passes the dog. And he's, "Come on, buddy, come on." The dog looks at him, turns around, and goes back to his car. He's like,
It's too far for him.
He's too far. I'm not running that far for him. So,
Too late. Have a great night.
yeah. So we started realizing that Rottweilers were good for short, apprehensions or searching, but nothing that was going to go more than 50 yards or 10 minutes of searching. So we kind of moved along, what Malinois and Shepherds, and now obviously they're extremely popular. Dobermans, we've had some in your department, Chris, and then it's also too, right, Sean? There was Dobermans in your city.
Yeah, we had early Bobby George had Sultan. And I have to tell you a story about this because this was the late 70s, early 80s. And it was before I got there, but when this is a story that was always known. They had a big Donnybrook downtown. It was a big fight. And they ran out of cage cars to transport the prisoners. So Bobby George, figures, well, okay, I got to take my guy to jail. So he has Sultan sit on the opposite side of the platform on the passenger side, and he puts the crook on the driver's side, right? Or he switched them. They were reversed. Put the dog behind Bobby and put the crook on the other side. And the story goes, the guy was just staring at Sultan, and Sultan was like an inch away from his nose, and they were just kind of eye to eye, and Bobby would have to keep looking back, kind of like, good boy, it's okay, good boy, he's okay, And this guy, when he gets out, he gets him out of the car and essentially says, "Sir, I'm never going to break the law again." This is what happens here. So, oh man, how crazy is that? Though Malinois, the military uses them all the time. And I saw a question earlier, and I've been flagging some of these questions coming your way, Manny, and Sean as well. Sean, how many Malos do you guys have down there right now?
We have 6 dogs total. I believe 4 of them are straight Malinois. Then one is a Shepherd, and the other one is a Shepherd Malinois mix.
Okay, and you have what's your dog's name now, and on the street, what do you guys?
My dog, he's just a narcotics dog. He's a lab. His name's Cooper.
Oh, that's right. Okay, and how's he doing with legalization of marijuana and all that stuff? You guys have to untrain him from that, or did you get him after the law went into effect?
Yeah, we got him after it. So he's never been trained on marijuana.
Okay.
So we haven't even messed with that.
Yeah, a buddy of mine's a handler in Denver, and he said they had to rewire all their dogs, and some of them just couldn't do it. So they ended up having to buy all new dogs. Manny, did you run into that a lot with some of the departments?
Yes, absolutely. And well, in the beginning, because some agents, they don't want to buy new dogs, so what we had to do is actually proof them off of marijuana, and then just constantly train to where we would have the marijuana, and the dogs had to go buy it and just bypass it, and it was a struggle. There was a struggle, and we finally, talked to the administration and said, "You're better off just, not using the dogs anymore." Because they had one left that was trained in marijuana. But he did fine. Actually, there was a few cases where he was sent in the vehicle and the dog would go over and sniff just the shake of marijuana, a little, but there, and he would sniff that, ignore it, and go to the back and hit on cocaine.
Oh wow.
And, yeah, so we were able to successfully work it, but again, for your PC, you want to make sure it's 100%. So we have proof with our records. But yeah, Sean's dog and all the other ones from that point on, it was no marijuana. Some agencies still work it, and especially for interdiction, working out in the highways.
How about fentanyl out there with fentanyl going on right now, Sean? How are you guys dealing with that stuff?
It's funny. Manuel and I are actually just talking about that, about training Cooper on fentanyl. There is a couple agencies I believe do, and Customs, they train their dogs on fentanyl. So I've been trying to get with Customs on how they train it, how they package it, everything, especially for the dogs, whether or not their dogs have had any overdoses and how they've recouped their dogs from the overdoses. And so we're slowly starting to try to work it into our department.
Yeah, I mean that's such a dangerous path. Manny, how and Fawn, how are you guys going to do that? I mean, I know you'll figure. I mean, you've done so many amazing things, but what are your thoughts?
We have 2 dogs right now that hit on fentanyl.
Okay.
For Huntington and then
Riverside.
Riverside.
Yeah. So we actually, you could start off with, now there's a pseudo fentanyl. It's the safest thing to actually establish the imprint. And after you do that in your training, then for certification, the officers have to bring the real fentanyl, and they double package it. And we have, everybody's carrying an Arcan. We're going around. Right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want to go hide it. Okay, you want
to? Changing our gloves out. Yeah.
Yeah. So we carry an Arcan just in case.
Stuff is dangerous. Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's more agencies that are going to that, and it's difficult, I think, overall, Joe said, the handling of it, and if you get too casual, that's when it becomes dangerous, right? But no, I think in the next 2 years, almost all dogs going to be trained on that. So
yeah, wow. And so I see in that video, you guys are also doing a lot of tactical training. I'm assuming that's for active shooter problems.
Sean has seen this, and Sean has been involved in a lot of our training. We just, on the last 2 weeks ago, was it, Sean? Was it that we set up a street scenario?
It was actually last week.
Oh, was it last week?
Last
No,
month.
okay.
Yeah, it was last week, I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So what we do there, dog training has been transformed into more of a tactical street scenario based training. We work on fundamentals, and then we have to kind of recreate some of the events that happen out in the real world. And so we set up a scenario, and Sean's one of the senior handlers down in his department, and he participates in that after debrief of whatever occurred. And this is where they really learn a lot. We make it difficult. You talk a little bit about that, Sean?
Yeah. So one of the scenario was basically we came up with, it was a carjacking. The guy got stabbed, and he was last seen running down the street. And the scenario for the officer was he's driving down the street and he sees the suspect. And it would be a normal radio call for us. You're checking the area, you got the description of the suspect, and boom, there he is. What are you going to do? You have the radio call. Now it's your chance to go out and do it. And so how are you going to respond? Are you going to get your dog out? Are you not going to get your dog out? Are you going to start giving the commands? Because everything's getting worked into, and your brain's having to move so quickly that sometimes you forget the easy things. And so you'll either forget your dog or you'll forget to give the guy commands. And so Manuel had set it up that if he doesn't give you commands, keep walking. If he doesn't tell you to lay down, don't lay down. And so it just kind of went back and forth on how the handler did it is what the suspect reacted to it. So it's try to make it as real as possible.
Fascinating. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so what happens is that I'm giving the signal to the bad guy, lay down, start walking, run away, come at him with the knife. Not all the scenarios are the same. And so the other handlers that just ran through their scenario get to observe another canine handler go through it, and they learn a lot because we pick up on so many mistakes, but at the same time, it really clarifies, some officer's mind. It's like, hey, you know what? There's so much to learn because a lot of times you get comfortable with your knowledge and you feel, oh yeah, I can handle anything. But going back to your question about tactics, yes, we incorporate a lot more tactics into our training than ever before. It's going to be a simple apprehension on a bad guy. Okay, you have the blue guns, approach it and slow down. And they treat it as if this bad guy had a gun, had a weapon. So it's not like before, all right, run and get your dog. Yeah, we do that, right, on and off, right, and training, because we do dog training and then we do officer training. And then we obviously combine it. But what we normally do, we have the officers take like a real call, and the tactics have really improved. And that's why the dogs are actually better dogs than many years ago, because a lot of it is based on the only way you're going to have good tactics is if you have control over your dog. You can't have good tactics if your dog doesn't recall, or the dog doesn't lay down and tell them to stay, right? So it's crucial that the dog's obedience, and that's our job as trainers to teach Sean and all the officers, how do you have better control over your dog.
I think we lost Chris Mobile.
Oh, we lost Chris?
Yeah.
Oh, you hit the wrong button.
Oh, there he goes.
Okay, so I'll explain. I'm not sure if everybody could hear us. So what we normally do is in our training, and we do weekly training with all the agencies, and we spend about 4 hours working on all the basics. But as soon as they get there, we have to discover there were any issues throughout the week. If the officer says, yes, my dog, sniffed a door and he didn't want, oh, there you are, didn't want to bark or alert, or we had a bad guy hiding up in the attic and the dog didn't alert. So we address those problems right away in that session. And then we challenge the dog, and with new exercises like maybe swimming across a little pond, to engage the bad guy on the other side. And then also we challenge the handler in some of the exercises. Our job as trainers is to discover any potential problems. As professionals, we see a teamwork, and we see that he's having an issue with a specific exercise, the dog not downing at point. So we give the officer homework to work on. But a lot of it's based now on how do we incorporate the dog, and even the simple, or not simple, the average police officer. We treat it as if he was a SWAT operator. And we're teaching the dog to work with a group of maybe 2 backup officers and the handler, and like a little SWAT team. That makes sense? Yeah.
I love it. You guys are answering questions. This is beautiful. Hey, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead out. I'm going to get something to eat. I'll be right back. As they say, adapt and improvise. We got cops on the scene anyway, so we got Sean in there, we got Manny, and fun. This is for some reason I just got. It was a power surge, and all of a sudden, I was in space, and I was like, "What happened?" And my computer, everything turned off. So sorry about that. But keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So, Sean, have you seen the difference in the way back when you first started to what we do now?
It's changed. It's changed dramatically in regards to tactics, because I think that works well with the tactics and the officer and the canine is that now they can start to get introduced more to the SWAT side of it because of the tactical exercises and the more tactical advances with the dog. So it gets easier to introduce them into the SWAT side of it, so that now when SWAT officers go out, they feel more comfortable taking the dog out because the dog has been working in the tactical side of it as well.
Yeah, back in the day, they would say, "Hey, Manuel, we want this dog to be a SWAT dog," and obviously you can't just throw a green dog into the SWAT, to back up a SWAT team. But what we do in our regular patrol training, we simulate, scenarios where we create a stack of officers and the dog has to be deployed from the rear of the stack, bypassing all the officers and apprehending or searching down the hallway, and then recalling the dog past everybody else. And I started doing that maybe 20 plus years ago, so it helped. Now it really advanced in our training, and it's not because we didn't know what we were doing then, but there's a need now for the dog to interact more with a bigger group of officers. So we add a lot more distractions to our training.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot.
And we bring cats out. We have a little cat on a leash. Yeah, she walks on the leash.
Every
you
week we have to
really?
get a new cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. Like that meme. I've seen it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Um,
Go
how
ahead.
about this question here? Somebody want to grab that? Does the weather affect the canine scent at all? I've heard it when it rains, it picks up a stronger scent for whatever the canine may be searching for. Is that true?
If it's a light rain, it can, but if it's really heavy rain, then it washes away all of the what they're looking
The
for, the
particles, yeah.
particulates. Yeah, and the skin wraps, they get washed away. But if it's real light in the beginning, it can increase the scent as it evaporates up in the air into the dog's nose. But
For many years, we used to use a spray bottle. And Sean remembers this. For example, we would walk down the street or in the parking lot, and we have a little sprayer for a garden sprayer.
the pumpy, where you pump it like 30 times.
Yeah.
And you spray.
Yeah, we used to just spray in front of us as we would step on the mist of this water. And as we were walking along, and we'd go down the street, make a left, make a right, and that would help the dog detect our scent on concrete. Not that long ago, actually, there's a scientist back from, it was Denmark, or was he from?
No, he was from Holland. No, not Holland.
Yeah, out there somewhere in
it
Europe, right?
Somewhere
they
not in the
specialize,
USA.
and they have scientists and spend a ton of money in discovering the dog's sense of smell. So they discover that, you know what, they search for bears or something like that.
Yeah, it's
right?
for kilometers. He'd run with his dog searching for bears that were going to the towns.
Yeah. So what they discovered was that you actually, as soon as you step, you drop skin rafts or dead skin cells on the ground immediately. And that you, by constantly just normally stepping on the concrete, you're leaving a lot of scent. So after going to his class and us experimenting, because every time you hear something, you go,
doesn't really work.
Yeah,
let's try it out at home.
Let's
We've
test
got,
it out, right?
12 dogs.
So we put it into practice, and son of a gun, we were able to prove, you know what? We don't need the sprayer anymore. The dogs are able to detect it, and there's a method that we use in order to keep the dog's nose on the ground to detect the human.
Because we would go to soft surfaces to try to imprint the tracking. So like older school, like classical style, when you're teaching tracking, you go to a soft surface or like the beach because you can see the footprints, and you put rewards in the steps. We do a lot of it in grass. Is how we used to start them off. Is you would put the grass and you can kind of see the trail as it's going through, and we put the reward for the dog as he's going on the scent of the footprint. But this guy would do the opposite, and then we would go from there to hard surface. So we go to asphalt or sidewalks. Then we would then it turns into trailing, so they're getting air scenting as well. But this guy would do the exact opposite. He would start on hard surface because he said there's less distracting odors on hard surface. It's just your shoe, your body, everything else. But the scent leaves really quickly, so it doesn't leave as long. It doesn't leave the odor there for as long as if you're on grass, if you're on sand. So that's why we would start that way. But he would do the opposite, and we would get dogs by the end of the first day. All he does is tracking. So he has a ton of experience because that's all he does every single day. But we were getting dogs that were tracking. My dad said, go experiment with it. So I went to Fanjan and I taught tracking to some of the dogs that we just had in the kennel. And by the end of the day, they're doing 40-foot, 50-foot tracks with the turn. Just on hard surface, and we're like, oh, son of a gun, look at that. It's working pretty good.
So with missing kids, for an example, I mean, a lot of dogs are used to scent from the PO point of origin to a potential location. What kind of success have you guys found that it takes to train a dog to do that? And if so, what kind of false positives could they get?
It's very difficult. You have to have the right dog, experienced dog. And also what happens is that you need to teach a dog scent discrimination. So not a lot of the police dogs, they learn to pick up the suspect's scent. And I'll tell you a story that was amazing. But for such a child that's lost, you have to have an item from this child. And we teach the dogs to scent discriminate, to where you give the dog the imprint of the odor he should, search for. And then you cast the dog out into the field or street, and the dog has to only pick up on that scent. And once he does, he has to follow that. So they're very specialized. It's very, very specialized training. Our police dogs, they're taught somewhat different. But there's a dog that was in Oceanside. It's funny because the chief said, I want a tracking dog. So what we did was we were testing the unit to see which of the dogs have the ability to become a tracker. And they were just local dogs. They weren't dogs that came from Schutzen background, like I think like your dog, right? Had some tracking skills already.
Right.
But these were green dogs. So I remember going to the park and we had all these dogs lined up and go, all right, let's put some hot dogs on the ground and on the grass and let's go ahead and do it. Right. So
They
so
love
You
hot
sure
dogs.
they weren't corn dogs?
yeah.
That's what we used to search for each other.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
search for corn dogs.
So we lay these hot dogs and we're trying to get the dogs on their track, and he's putting his nose on the ground and 2 or 3 dogs did it for a few feet and got distracted. And there was a dog named Leo. This is our personal dog. We had him at home for 6 months.
You hit the
And-
street at what, 9?
Yeah. So
Wow.
this dog at 11 months, we sold him to OPD because of one of my friends needed a dog as well. Rich, you remember Richard? And then he said, I said, hey, I have a dog at home. He's a lot of dog. He's a great dog. He's about 90-pound male. He's going to be good on the field. So we trained the dog, and he hit the street at 11 months. A puppy, right? At 11 months old. Yeah.
For a year.
Tremendous dog. So he couldn't put his nose on the ground. He was shoving the dog. Come on, buddy, encouraging. And the dog jumped up. I remember he hit him right underneath the jaw. And he goes, no, that's it. I'm done with this dog. He's useless. So he puts him in the car. We still worked on trailing, not tracking, but trailing. There's a little confusion what the definition of these skills are. But so we did hot trails where fun would run and hide, let's say, and then it's in a area that's full of brush, and the dog locates him. So there was a murder in Vista. The husband killed his wife and ran out of the apartment complex and just ran down the street. So Oceanside gets there, and the sheriff's department, they create a good perimeter, strong perimeter. It happened right away. So the dog again wasn't a tracker, but he's a trailer. And we work hard surface trailing or tracking in a sense. So the dog comes up to the apartment area and say, where's the last place you saw this guy? Well, we just saw him run down here, the embankment here. So gets his dog. He puts him on. He tells him, go track. And the dog goes west about 30 yards, makes a left, now goes south for 2 blocks down. This is on concrete. Crosses the street, and then goes west again, crosses the boulevard. This is Santa Fe, North Santa Fe. You remember that street?
Yeah.
And then is going towards the Beaubier, now he's going south again, and he runs into one of the perimeter officers, and the dog's taking him towards that direction, and the officer says, hey, wait, the dog didn't bite me. He tells the dog to down, and he goes, no, he's pulling me past you. And the officer says, there's no way he left the perimeter. I was here within a few minutes, at a minute and a half at the most. He's not this way. He said, well, then you don't mind if I just follow my dog? He's like, all right, shoot yourself. I don't know. Your dog doesn't have any sense. You're like, could you move out of the way? So like, all right, go ahead. He moves out of the way. The dog follows going south, goes into a parking lot. It's another apartment complex, goes down to a carport,
Wow.
makes a left, and starts circling a vehicle. So the backup officer, they run behind you, right? Like, where are you taking us? And it's embarrassing.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
And he pulled the dog back, and he said, check the vehicle. The backup officer checked the vehicle. Suspect is laying down inside that vehicle in the back seat.
There you go.
So there's a good example of a dog that wasn't
Wow.
a very good trailer, but the constant training, it really helped develop his skills.
And you said that was Oceanside, right?
Yeah. That was Leo, Oceanside Leo. Yeah.
I'm just giving,
Yeah.
I'm giving John a hard time down there, right? Well, one war story I had, with the jerk, with Irk the jerk, I had a caper one time where it was a pursuit, and it was National City, They were coming up, northbound, and Manny. I don't know if you remember
Wow.
this, but it was a full-on pursuit from the border, and they got off in Carlsbad at Carlsbad Village Drive. Well, I was coming. It was like 3:30 in the morning, and I had just gotten off work, and I heard the call come out, and dispatch came up and knew I was driving home and said, "Are you in the area?" And I said, "Yeah, affirmative. It's the next exit." So anyway, the suspect gets off. They spin out, and it's a gunfight,
Hmm.
and then the suspect takes off, and I pull up after all the smoke is cleared, and I looked at the first officer there, and I said, "Where'd you last see him?" And he goes, "There, that way." And I hooked the jerk up, said, "Zook, find the man." And man, within 5 minutes, he got the guy, in hiding into some brush, probably about a block and a half down. Nothing like what you just shared, but man, the power of the scent on these animals is absolutely amazing. Which I think dovetails into this question here that I've had up here: do dogs suffer emotionally in certain situations? She had Marlena had a typo, but um, I know what that feels like, Marlena. Do they suffer emotionally like that during those traumatic situations? And anybody can take that.
They would.
It's yes and no. When we think of suffer, we think of more suffering. It's like long term. Like they think about it, it's a reoccurring thing. And depends what the situation is, but in the moment, the dog's gonna have the emotions that they're feeling, either fear, getting scared, getting angry. But the reason we pick these dogs is because they have the characteristics to push past a lot of things. But in general, for most dogs, you can get them past any emotional barriers that they have if they have the right temperament. So that's why we choose them to have these temperaments, to where if they do get startled or they do get attacked as well, the fight's on, they'll push through it. And so yes and no. If I think
Yeah.
that's, does that explain
Yeah,
it?
I
Right?
think the because you humanize the dog sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Right. They anthropomorphic, and they tend to, because we have all these feelings, we feel the dog might have the same feelings as we do in a confrontation, or the stress of something, a fight or whatever. Some of the dogs do get hit, punched, kicked, stabbed. We've had a few dogs just recently in another city. This dog we train as well, but working for another city, and he got stabbed. Yeah, he's going to be fine. He survived. And whenever a dog gets severely injured, we feel like, ooh, emotionally he's done, right? He's not going to go fight again because it hurt. And like the dog was taught, the dog got shot because it's in their genes. And if it's too traumatic, I think the only time when the dog will stop it will affect him emotionally, is if the pain is so great in the act of maybe engaging when he's about to bite, or when he's on the bite, or when he's about to come in and he's physically injured. Now the dog might anticipate that pain and will fail on the street. And that's where we make a decision as trainers to say, you know what, it's not, the dog's not dependable. He should be retired and live a good life in a ranch somewhere or with a handler. But he's done as a police dog.
Yeah. So I think the word there, I think suffer is where that's the tricky word to use, because if you could take that word out and replace it with maybe like stress, dogs get stressed emotionally during those times, but they don't suffer. It's not the same word like as if we were to suffer.
Yeah. And we create stress in training.
Yeah.
Because you guys out on the field, right, Sean? It's all about the stress level.
Mhm.
Yeah, your adrenaline going up, and and all these things. So
Yeah, and that's one of the things we try to, the Manuel tries to create as best as he can in training, is that stress level. I mean, we definitely can't recreate it out in the field, because the field is different. It's happening then and now, and they know it's training. So the dogs have to differentiate between the two. And when what's out in the real world, the dog knows that something's going on, because the handler's changed, his adrenaline has changed, his voice has changed, the actions have changed, what he's telling the dog to do has changed. So it's all changed, and so the dog's got to work through that.
Interesting. So, okay, so I've got like 22 questions flagged
Right.
as we've been going on. So let's kind of hit these questions, but kind of get in and get out.
Got it.
And if we need to elaborate, then you can elaborate. But I want to try to get through some of these that have been up here. So let's start with the Lex right here, because we're all different, unique scents. How do you get a canine differential to on a human scent? How do you get a dog to smell differently, I guess, to the human?
To smell differently.
So we
we create a scent pad, and then that scent pad is the same throughout that track or trail that we lay. And so you can have cross tracks of different people walking by, while we have this person who only went straight and then made a left. Then we have people walk horizontally. So that's how we train them to stay on the original scent. We have people walk by, and then we keep them on the path.
And after every time the dog follows that scent, at the end there's a reward.
He gets
there's a ball, there's a toy at the end of the. So we reinforce that human scent of that specific person. Always rewards him. If he goes off to the other track, we say no.
Okay, and so I'm going to answer this one here. Their website is in the description below. Give them a call after this show, and they can walk you through, what is necessary on that for looking for a trainer. Let's see here. On this one, want to find a trainer? Okay, I already answered it. Sorry about that. I know you guys are close to Camp Pendleton. I know you've worked with the Marines out there. So I'm assuming the answer is going to be yes, and we don't need to keep beating on that one for a little bit. Okay, and Malinois mostly, right? Aren't the Marines mostly using Malinois?
Yes, they do mouth.
And some of the SOF guys, the special operators, they're using Malinois.
Yeah, mostly. We see some shepherds here and there. We worked with them not that long ago. We went and participated with that little activity they had there. But
yeah, I love that. Back in the day, I was a lot of fun with those guys. Where do dogs go when they retire? I would imagine the person that would adopt one would also have to be highly trained. Does the trainer keep it?
Normally they'll when the dog retires, they go with the officer that worked him last. Is normally how it works out. There's some big ranches and funds that people can also win, that they have for retired police dogs, where you can go there and they live on like a big field, and they go out for training as much as they can do. But normally they'll go with the handler who had them last. Okay.
If dogs are not raised with cats, do they generally dislike them? Thanks, Mimi.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that.
If dogs are not raised with cats, they generally just there's a pretty good I think it was from Cambridge or Columbia University. They put out a really good lecture about it. It's about 2.5 hours long, but a lot of the visual indicators that dogs use to communicate are the opposite in cats. So when dogs see a cat for the first time and they look at them, it's very aggressive the way the cat is communicating with the dog, because they're opposite. So the ears up or the ears down is aggression or submission, and they're opposite. So normally when the dog sees them, the communication's off, and then they go, "Oh yeah, you want to fight?" And then they kind of get into little brawls there. If the dog,
it's on.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. If the dog
do you train cats?
So we had okay. So this is really cool, because when I was growing up, we had a cat, and he would walk on a leash and he would sit, and so we'd walk him, and my dad trained him on a harness, and we would lay little food for him, but he'd bring him out for classes, and then we just got another kitten, and we've been walking him. Yeah, so I have a cat right now at the kennel, and I put him on a little harness and I walk him around. And her name's JoJo, and I give her her food, and I'm trying to get her to sit, but it's a little bit harder than dog. But
that is awesome. Do you bring them down to the kennel?
So yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah.
Do you tease all the Malinois?
So yeah, in a way, yeah. We have her walking. She's minding her own business. She walks with me. I have her on leash, and then we have the dog muzzled, and they're doing their obedience. Cool. And I run with the cat. And the dogs look over and they go, "Oh my gosh, it's a cat!" And so JoJo's minding her own business with her little toys. But yeah, we use it for control, because we want the dogs, really, no matter what's going on, to control themselves. But
yeah, we're working with more therapy dogs, and also the more emotional support dogs for military.
Yep.
So a lot of the dogs that have to go to these retired,
these homes, they can't be trying to kill every cat.
So sometimes they have cats. So they want dogs that are very stable with cats. So we said, let's get another cat, and let's go ahead and condition her. And she does extremely well. We teach her like a dog. Pretty much, we treat her like a dog as well.
Yeah, you have to start. You have to start when they're young. Though when they're older, you're not going to be able to train it.
Very cute.
Yeah,
So.
she's awesome.
Yeah,
That is so cool. It really is. Talk about driving a class crazy. Just walk out with a cat with a bunch of Malinois with muzzles on.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Okay, so this one here, I was recently at a conference for ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children, and they are using. In fact, a guy walked up to me because he knew I had Buddy. He's a friend of mine, but they train scent dogs to find microchips and that kind of stuff. And he said, you have a Jack Russell. I said, yeah. He said, it'd be really interesting is, if I could figure out how to get a Jack into the air ducts up into a house. He said, so they're so used to going into tunnels, right, Manny? I mean, you guys, and that kind of stuff, and where the crooks are hiding their inappropriate material up in those spots up there. So, to answer this question, the answer is yes, right? There's a lot of those dogs being trained.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So this one goes back to the earlier. What if there's more than one bad guy in the area? How do they differentiate?
They actually will pick up on it, and it has happened. A good story in Chula Vista many years ago. There was a hot stop, and there's a pursuit, and it went into a field. The driver just takes off, and the officer sends a dog, and he runs by, looks in the car, clears the car, runs, and they all bypass this car, and the dog's on the bite over there. As they're coming back, he's walking the dog back to his car. He has him off leash because it's early 80s, and the dog stops and looks towards the suspect's vehicle and runs in. And the dog, and then you hear screaming in the car, get him off. You're like, what? So he runs up, and he grabs his dog and pulls this guy out of the vehicle. It was a Suburban. So he gets his dog off, he gets the dog off the bite, and then they take him into custody. And he's like, oh boy, oh my goodness, we never saw this guy. So he's walking along, and the dog stops and comes back. And he's trying to get back in the car. And he's like, no, buddy, you got him already. Let's go. And he goes back in. He's like, ugh. So he lets him go back in. He finds a third guy.
Oh, wow.
So how does the dog know, right? And the dog sense, but through training, obviously, we do exercises where we have 2 suspects in a building or even 3 suspects. So it's not always one. We practice that because it's real life.
Yep. Yeah, and it is real life because you could get a janitor or somebody that's tripped an alarm and right, Sean, and they don't hear, the announcement that you're going to send in the dog, and all of a sudden, they could turn into something really bad. And right here, Lady May, send the question again, please, because it went past me. I'm going to have to grab it again, but if you wouldn't mind, please send it back up again. This one right here. What would you consider the biggest distraction when training a dog?
A normal pet or a police dog?
For normal pets, normally it's people and other dogs. For police
dogs, it's the yelling and screaming of other officers, because they're suspects that are passive, and they're real bad guy, but he's just sitting there, and the other officers are yelling, get on the ground and show me your hands. So the dog instinctively will gravitate to the sound and the noise and the screaming,
the highest level of stimulation.
And that's based on that. So that's our challenge.
Okay. This one here.
What you have favorite breeds again? Which breeds you preferred again? Best breeds for you? Okay, so for personal dogs and family dogs, we always choose pretty mild dogs. Like my dad has a poodle. She was down here. That's who I was petting earlier. But a poodle, King Charles, they're real good. I have a lab right now. I just kind of wanted a dog that would just eat and sleep. For working dogs, the Mals are really, really good. We liked them for a while. Shepherds are real good, depending on the task. But like I said, for family dogs, King Charles, he loves them. Poodles likes them. Labs.
And my favorite overall is my Doberman.
His Doberman is. He's going to say that every
that's
time.
Probably what I'm obsessed
You're a big
about.
Dobie guy. You're a big Dobie.
Yeah, all these years.
Oh, whoops! I just
Oops.
this one here.
Just-
Whatever. Czechoslovakian Shepherd. He is a gentle giant until someone comes at his family. He's been trained by a trainer for our canines here in North Carolina. That's more of a statement, but
Fun.
Nice.
it sounds like he's watching over the family really well. Thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing that. Joan asks, Joan Atkins, what are the dog's favorite treats? My Ducktown won't eat any treats. Well, he'd probably eat a corn dog. He's a little hot dog, just like from the lab with my buddy Josh over there, who, by the way, after the show, I'm going to be over at his house. My Dutch Hound won't eat any treats. I've tried many. He does love steak, though.
So do I.
What do you give your dog, Sean?
So do I. Good one.
I
Thank
give
you.
Cooper it starts with a Z. I don't remember the whole name, but I know it starts with a Z. And he likes the bison one the most for his treats.
Well,
good.
maybe on Manny's channel, he can get him for a sponsor over there. So whatever that treat is, begins with a Z.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can't remember
everyone.
the name of it.
That's
Z
hysterical.
treats.
Yeah, beautiful.
So Margaret asks, I've seen canine officers on duty with SWATs. Well, Sean happens to be an on-duty dog guy, and you guys have. Were you part of the SWAT deployment when you were doing the street stuff, the street dog?
Yeah, when I had a patrol dog, when I had Apollo, because Apollo was a dual-purpose dog, he did narcotics and patrol. We just started integrating the dogs into the SWAT team. So we did a couple SWAT scenarios with them and did some SWAT training with our SWAT team. So at that point, it slowly started to get integrated, and now it's more and more. It's happening more and more often now with the dogs.
Okay. If you had a choice, would you have kept any of the dogs you've trained in all the years you've wanted one particular dog? A memory's best memory you have. Manny, that's going to be a hard one for you because you've trained thousands of dogs.
Yeah, and some I really fell in love with that but I think it was, for me, one of the reasons why I didn't keep some of these dogs were because I knew they were going to be happier being out in service.
As patrol dogs.
Yeah. I was, just being selfish, I would keep them at home because they were born for that. And you see them enjoying every second of every search and training. And for me, just being a house dog would be just in the backyard or maybe playing with me, whatever. But being a police dog, they're with the officer 10, 12 hours a day sometimes, and they go home, they rest. It's a great life. So,
yeah.
But yeah,
we want to keep almost all of them, I would say. Probably is a probably good, accurate, an accurate statement. It's probably every dog.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sean, what say you on that one? Because I know how the bond.
Oh yeah, the bond is just, you're with the dog so much. I mean, you're actually with the dog more than your family because you train with the dog, you go home with the dog, you work 10, 12, 15 hours a day with the dog. That dog is there to protect you and is there to protect your partners. And the dog is your partner. I mean, other officers call for you like, hey, can you bring your partner over here? So the bond just becomes incredible. And so, yeah, you want to keep them all when you have them. It's unbelievable bond. I love it.
That's awesome. What a great answer. And does your wife give you treats that begin with a Z on that one? I know mine does. Mine does. The question is, is German still used for commands, Manny and Fawn?
Yeah, it depends on the officer in the department, but yeah, they use German, they use Dutch,
French,
really whatever, French, Spanish.
Some of the guys don't want to
Spanish now.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it just depends on
I
the
love
dog.
it.
Yeah. Some of the guys they criticize, how the cops are, right? Oh, you're talking French to your dog. Gee,
I know, you should learn a real language like German. That's they're
like that's not a police dog.
Yeah, it's wild. Good. But yeah, it's whatever they want. So we have the dogs. We call them bilingual.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
My first dog was Dutch, and then when I got Apollo, because he was Dutch, because I was a second handler, so I just kept it that way. And then Apollo, since he was new, I just taught him in English because I thought that would be the easiest thing because I'm not smart enough to learn another language. So I just did straight English for that. But we had another handler. Remember Tuki?
Oh, sure.
Remember?
Yeah.
He's Russian, and so when he got his other dog, we're like, teach your dog in Russian. I mean, how awesome would that be to hear the commands in Russian? But he didn't. So you have this Russian guy that's speaking French to the dog, and it was like that just makes no sense right there. But it was pretty funny. Teach him in Russian.
Funny.
Teach him in Russian.
Yeah, it's wild.
Japanese, right? Like
Yeah.
We had a Japanese. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really cool stuff. So basically, how does the dog differentiate from the language, or how does that work?
So the association's made with an action. So the word, because the dog doesn't know it's English that you're saying, or doesn't know it's French. Like, oh, you're speaking German now. We just associate the action with whatever sound we have. So like with clients who don't speak, like mute or deaf, it's through touch, a lot of it. So really, we just associate sit, and then we push the dog's butt down and give him a treat. And then he goes, oh, okay, when I hear it, I get to sit. And that really could be anything. We've done it with clickers. Like I said, with deaf dogs, it's through touch. So you touch them under the chin, and then we push the dog's butt down, we give them a treat. So now they have all the same commands that a regular dog would have, but it's all physical. So it's just the association.
And they remember, if they were originally trained, let's say in German, and the handler, we have a handler that said, you know, this is the second dog. He said, my second dog was in Dutch. I will not, under stress, I'm going to revert to my Dutch commands, because I got that for 7 years.
Times,
so I need to train that German command transfer more to Dutch. And what's funny about that you could tell the dog to down in Dutch, and then you'll tell him down in German, and he remembers it. They have great memory. Wow. They won't forget their original language. Yeah. So you could throw it out even 5 years later and tell him Platz, and the dog will lay down.
Right. Normally, I start all the dogs off in German at the kennel when we start the foundational training, and then it's up to the officer to choose the language that they want.
Wow. But, so you're still using, if I remember right, geblaut, Platz, Varan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
I
haven't missed a step.
Give me a zook.
Give him a dog.
Yeah. That's the Z word. That's what everybody's saying out there. Do other dogs around our property distract the scent of a dog?
Distract the scent.
Yeah, like for
I guess the attention,
especially if they're in heat. A lot of times you go to you're searching a neighborhood, and Sean could tell you this, right? If you're on the street, right? And for detection, the same thing, right?
There's whether it's a dog, cat. I mean, as soon as there's another scent, it's the dog. It's hard for the dog to get past that. So a lot of times, it's one of the questions asked: are there any other animals in the house? Because if there are, even if they're kenneled, the dog is still going to be attracted to that, or there's beds laying around, or there's this, or toys, especially if there's toys, and the dog, that's his drive. He's going to go get that toy. So then you're stuck. So it's hard to get the dog past that if there's other animals in the house.
Yeah. And that's what our training's for. We try to figure out what dogs are going to be distracted by the most. So we have Lily, I bring in my dog, we have him run around before we do the searches. So to get him to overcome those obstacles.
Yeah, especially females in heat. That's one of the biggest, because we use a lot of males, and they're not neutered, so they fall in love in searching the yard. So
odor from adrenaline. How much of the adrenaline does a dog need? I mean, I've heard different analogies in relationship to the power and the scent, and you guys are the professionals. What are the fundamental basics?
Well, when you look at for the dog, a lot of it has to do with, we know the dog could smell better than we can, right? And because they have a more surface area, so per square centimeter of their nose is bigger, right? A dog has a German Shepherd is like 150 centimeters of surface, and a human, he doesn't have. He's like 5, So what helps a dog smell better than us is they have more receptors, more smell receptors than we do. For example, a German, I think like a German Shepherd, a dog has like 900, a German Shepherd, let's say. A mouse has 1,000 different receptors. In us, we have less than 400. So the dog's able to really detect more types of odors, right, with their receptors than we can. And so how much better are they? It goes back to that individual dog. Like bloodhounds have bigger noses, bigger surface area. Okay, there are a lot of receptors, but at the same time, the mouse has a little tiny nose, but he detects better than we can. So it depends on the different receptors that they have. But that's really it, because I mean, dogs, we're surprised sometimes in their ability to detect an odor that was. We remember, Sean, we were working in a building and the dog was over and he's sniffing a file and he sits. You're like, what the heck? And later on, we discovered that that's where we hit the dope like a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't wrong. It was exactly in the little, a seam where the dog alerted. So that's it's we're just, even after all these years, after 40 plus years of training dogs, I'm still fascinated by the way they are able to use their nose.
Amazing. This is kind of a sensitive one here, obviously, with the most recent tragedy in Texas. Um, would a dog be useful in schools today to protect children daily? And there's no right or wrong answer on that one, right? It's such a
Right.
complicated question. But thank you, Nancy in Tennessee, for asking it. But I do think it's worth asking.
Yes, I believe there was sent out a company that was trying to incorporate dogs in schools, and by using a certain system, and I could see where they were coming from. It was in the news, and I read about it, and I really, a lot has to be as a deterrent, right? So if the bad guy knows that there's a dog or present, and it's able to attack, that might really just discourage him from even approaching that school, because now he has to face the dog besides the handler. And that's, now we have two things to worry about, not just only an officer with a weapon. So can it work out? There has to be more studies on this, right? And find out if it's possible, and the disadvantage or advantage. Anything on that, Sean?
Yeah, being a handler, it's, again, you've got that bond with that animal, and if it's going to be a person or the dog, you're going to send your dog. But in a bad situation like that, especially a school shooting, it's, you send your dog, the dog gets shot. Now you've got a dead dog, and you've still got this person shooting out there and shooting up children, unfortunately. So it's kind of a give and take. It's like, do you sacrifice your dog that's going to get shot anyways, and this person is still going to be shooting, or do you sit or do you put your dog up and you go advance and have a better, try to have a better outcome? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that question. It's just
Yeah, no,
unfortunate
I totally agree with
circumstances.
that. And each department policy is going to variant. There's going to be a variance around the country on that, and in relationship to um, those kind of scenarios where the training, I think, of the officers is more critical than the dog being trained. That the training today is to engage quickly and continue to engage. Back when I started in the game, it was contain a scenario and then deal with it then. But then as times progressed and some of these tragedies uh, went along the way that they did, and these sweet little innocent victims were taken from us, it was enough is enough. Let's get in there and let's knock this guy out and take it out. And so that, I think, is a more logical play in this, as well as securing these buildings a little bit more. It could save some more. So to answer the next question here, these dogs, Marlena, I can tell you, there is a tremendous amount of undoing once a handler, even if a handler's hurt, because I can tell you from personal experience where I had a pursuit one night down into Carlsbad. It was a kidnap victim in the back seat, and she was reaching over the front seat and trying to steer the car away from the suspect and turn the wheel, and the car spun out and rolled, and the suspect bailed, and I was behind them, and I sent my dog Irk on the beach. And remember, Manny, the dredging, those big, huge pipes. Well, I hit one,
Oh,
uh, and Irk went over it, and I didn't see it, and I went over it, and so I was like, laying on the sand,
wow.
and all of a sudden I hear this guy screaming because Irk's on him, and I see two guys run by me, and I got birds spinning around my head, and it's like, where's my dog? Where's my dog? And I jump up, and they bring Irk back, right?
Oh my
Because I
gosh.
was yelling, Irk, out, because I didn't know where he was. And they walk back and they looked at me and was like, boy, you're a good handler. And they basically, hand me back my dog. But that's how passive he was around cops,
Yeah.
and to that point, right? I mean, I think he smelt the leather. And anyway, he made the apprehension, and my partners brought my dog back, and I went to the hospital, and he waited right there with me.
Oh,
He
that's
waited
so
right there
cool.
with me, messed up my knees.
Oh my
But
gosh. Yeah.
but I'm fine. I mean, I don't look as bad as the guy below me, so I'm in good shape. I'm teasing. I love you. Okay, my Ellie holds her ears to the left like radar constantly. Is that normal?
Holds her here. She holds her ear to the left.
Yeah, like constantly. Is that normal?
Yeah, it could be for her, right? Because some dogs they move around like constantly, and if it's tilted to the left a little bit, yeah, I would believe so.
I guess it's normal for her. I mean,
yeah, it's hard to sit, unless we see her.
Yeah, if she's not shaking, then it's pretty normal. We have some dogs that will it's comfortable for them, so they put it out there or they turn it. But
Okay, what treats do you suggest, Sean?
The one that started.
And
I'll tell Memo the name of it
we
tomorrow.
love this guy. He is on the street, protecting us every single night. He's leaving his family, and he's working on the street every single night. And thank goodness for guys like Manny and Fawn who help us. I'm retired, so I can wear these shirts and have these little podcasts and stuff. But Sean's out there day to day, and so keep him in your prayers and show him some love in the chat out here as he answers what his treat suggestion would be.
The Z starts with a Z. I would tell you that if it wasn't from Manuel, I definitely wouldn't be where I am now with these dogs. I mean, I've had so much fun, and being with Manuel and being with Fawn and learning as much as I have for them, and it's just been an absolute blast. So Manuel has definitely been a very good mentor for me.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Good to hear that. Thank you, Sean.
I'll pay you later, Manuel.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where's the $20?
Yeah, there you go. No, what's funny is that Sean, he's had all these dogs, and every time we get to another dog, we're using another method and technique. That's what's amazing, right? Because he would feel like, okay, now this is his third dog, he should know what he's doing, but he doesn't because it's a new dog. So we have to change the method, and you're stepping in too close, you're too far. Don't go to the right. Throw your treat from the left. Switch hands, all these things that come about, and and that's what makes it challenging, and that's why you have to train every week. And Sean has a great attitude. That's what I love about him. Right, he makes me laugh, and he makes mistakes, but he recognizes it, right? Because he doesn't have any ego, which is great.
Well, it's funny. I know when I messed up because I'll do something and Memo will go, "Oh hell!" I'm like, messed up again. Especially with the treat throwing, I'll hit the dog in the back of the head. Memo was like, "Oh hell!"
And that's part of the process, isn't it, Manny? Right? When you choose a handler, I mean, you guys choose the handlers to match the dog, but you really do look for those attributes of positive mental attitude, humility, because they have to be teachable. Right. If you can't, you got to have guys like Sean that you can mold in relationship to, plugging those qualities together for both the handler and the dog. Right.
Exactly. Yes. And, and we feel and see that the handler's not really cut out for it. That's when we step in as trainers, and then we talk to the sergeant, pull him aside, and be very frank with him and say, hey, this guy's not good. And we've been a few times where we have to go and really step up to the administration and write a letter, and pretty much it's telling you either he goes or we go, because we are not going to take a chance. We're not going to be training handlers that don't want to be there, and they're not humble enough to correct their mistakes. And because they are officers, right? You need a certain personality to be out in the field. But in order to train, to work with a dog, we have to care about the dog, number one. but also be fine with criticism, because it's on a weekly basis that we're critiquing your performance, right? And Sean, I pound on him more and more, and he takes it, and it's so good about it, and that's why he's such a good handler, So
Yeah, absolutely. And he's probably a great dad too, because I could hear the kids, and I just think it's fantastic, because the one question about, do the dogs go home and live with you? And the answer to that is yes.
Yeah. Yeah. The dogs are always with us. Yeah. So always with us. I've been lucky enough that I've had all 3 dogs have been very family dogs. And so they know how to turn it on and off. And so when they're at home, they're a normal dog and can run around with the family and do things with the family. But as soon as they get in a patrol car and the door shuts, they completely change to a different dog, and they know it's time to go to work.
Yeah, and that's what people forget sometimes. They are actually working dogs. They're not pets. They are service dogs, and it says keep away police dog for a reason on there, unless of course you're drunk. And I know you've got your own stories on that. But here's a question here. You've already had 3 dogs. Did other pass away of age, or did change department, or what's the backstory on that?
So my first dog, Lucas, he retired. He had some medical issues, retired. He did end up passing away. My second dog, Apollo, I promoted, and so I ended up promoting out of the unit, and they went ahead and retired Apollo as well with me, so I could take him home. But unfortunately, he did have medical issues as well, so he ended up passing. And then I've got Cooper, who's home with me now.
I love that name, Cooper. That's awesome. That's a cool name. And how much dope does he find on a nightly basis, or can you?
It depends. It depends on the circumstances. I work a lot with the postal inspectors as well, sniffing parcels, suspect parcels. So he actually just got 3 pounds the other day of methamphetamine from the post office.
Way to go, Cooper.
So it all just depends. Sometimes it's like every 2 or 3 days we're doing something, and then it could go a week or so.
Awesome. Does a specially trained have to stay with the trainer on the job, or is it fully trained to go with an officer, with any officer on the job? Manny, Fawn?
So if I understand the question right, it's with the handler. So not any officer can just go up and grab the dog and take him on a call. They're trained to stay with that officer. But there was that. Remember, what department was it where the officer went over the fence and blew out his knee?
Oh,
and then the other.
That was Oz Cruz. Yeah, that was Oz Cruz and Tony Nichols.
Yes,
that was Tony. That was Tony Nichols' only apprehension was with another handler.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, they normally work like Chris's dog, right? Somebody else brought him along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but in this case, the handler of the dog jumped over a wall or a fence, blew out the ACL, I believe. So the dog runs out of the yard, and he's
still chasing the suspect.
Yeah, he's running out that way, and I think the other handler left his dog in the car and grabbed that dog.
No, he directed him. He directed
him.
Yeah, the dog was running at him. He directed him, and he went with him.
Yeah.
And then Coos got redirected and got the guy.
And that's a really interesting point, because, and Manny, does that, I mean, I know where we all used to train together, all the handlers, we'd all be with you, and you're doing so many different things. But do you think that was why Irk was kind of used to being around cops, or that, because we were trying to figure out why was he listening, because I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Pete Ream called him out. He called him out. He said, "Irk, out." And Irk let go and just looked around. He's like, "Where's Dad?" Okay. And Pete just grabbed him by the collar and just held on to him and just kind of shuffled him down with everybody hooked up the other guy. But is that because of what? What happened?
What's funny is that there was a controversy. We were at one time, we were at this conference, and there was a department, I don't want to say who they were, their trainer was there, and the speaker, the speaker of this conference, was talking about that you had to condition the dogs to respect the officers, with their uniform, and recognize and discriminate, right? It's like, you don't bite these guys. These are the good guys. And it's funny because I was doing that since, more or less your time, where we teach them
since
to
the
run
early
by,
age. Right.
run by the cop and go bite the bad guy. You
Yep.
muzzle dog, you run these scenarios. And this instructor of this department said, that's ridiculous. The dogs will not learn that. And he turns around and looks at me and he says, Manuel, do you practice that? I go, yes, we do. Since when? Since like the 80s. He's like, well, that doesn't work. I go, it does. I can't say 100% because nothing's 100%, but definitely it has really paid off. It's been many hundreds of times the dog runs by officers, zigzags around their legs, and apprehends a bad guy. So I strongly believe in that, and that's one of the reasons that we incorporate in our training. And the dogs, it's amazing. They really look up, and even we don't like the officers to agitate when they're wearing a patch. I mean, their patches and
their gear and everything. We have them take it off.
You have to take it off, right?
That's
Don't even
awesome.
So that's how we teach the dog respect of the officers.
That's awesome. Well, we've got just a couple more, and then the way I like to close out this evening is Sean. Number one, I want to tell everybody, if you're in the San Diego area and Chula Vista specifically, and you see this guy on the street, give him a thumbs up. Tell him how much you appreciate his service, because he's out there real time as things are going on, and kind of give him a high five, and maybe get to meet Cooper if you run into him out there. So, and then so I'm just going to go through a couple more, and then Manny, as my tradition is, to give you the last word, and then once you're done, tell everybody about where you guys are located and how they can get hold of you, and also go over to your YouTube channel, subscribe to your channel, or whatever social media you have. Guys and gals, get over there, subscribe, pass this around to all your friends, your neighbors, to all your dogs, your cats in the neighborhood. Make sure it's on everybody's social media page, for the right reason. Manny and Fawn are the real deal, and I am so grateful for them. So this one I'm going to answer. Could a dog have missed and picked up? Yes. That's always possible, because dogs are dogs and humans are humans. But a lot of times it's the handler error. It's not necessarily the dog. The dog knew where he was headed or she was headed, but the handler couldn't read it correctly. And that's typically how that happens. If someone throws another command, can that stop the dog?
Not if they're the one getting bit. I mean, I train all the dogs at the kennel. I start them off, and normally I'm the main agitator for the academy. And so I yell, go, no, stop, sit. And then they come and they bite. So we train them off of that, but no.
Okay. You said the best age to train a dog is 6 months is ideal, but can we start training as early as 2 months?
Yeah, I mean, we like 4. That's for the police canines. 4 months is when we start the basic obedience, the fundamentals for it. But you can start imprinting at around 2 months. Certain behaviors, the retention level is pretty low, but it's all through treats. If you use it through treats and make associations, you can start that early. It's not going to be very dependable, but you could start that early. It's good to have a foundation then.
That's awesome. And then I have an English Springer Spaniel named Cooper. That's for you, Sean. He's also got some way to go, Cooper, on the recent dope find, and then this one here is directed at everybody. Thank you for your wonderful service. We appreciate God's work on the ground. Keep up all the wonderful things that you're doing.
Nice.
You guys, and I want to dovetail into that. Thank you. Is just very well heartfelt. So, Sean, I'm going to sign you off first. So what say you, and then I'm going to pull you out, and then leave it up to Manny and Fawn to close us out. What do you want to tell the audience? Yep.
So first off, I found the treats that starts with a Z, because somebody asked if they're Zooks, and they're not Zooks. They're called Signature, but it's with a Z, so Signature. So for anybody who wants to know, he gets the Signature. The bison or the duck are the ones he likes the best, but it's Signature with the Z. Those are the ones you like.
That's cool.
Chris, I really appreciate you having me on. I've had a lot of fun, and Manuel, thank you for inviting me. Like I said, if it wasn't for Manuel and Fawn, I definitely wouldn't be where I would be right now with the dogs and having 3 dogs. So I really appreciate it, and it's been really fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your service and for keeping us safe out there. And we're grateful that you're on the street. And God bless to your family. And hopefully we'll get to do this again, my friend. Okay.
Of course, I would definitely
Okay,
love it.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to pull you out, Manny. All right, Mr. Manuel and Mr. Fawn. Wow, what a great guy. What a great guy. And you guys, again, I just want you guys to know how grateful we are. And I say we because, being retired in relationship to, dogs and that kind of stuff, when they sent me over to homicide, I was like, okay, give me a body. I'll be good to go here, and spent the last 13 years of my career in that game. And Fawn and I were just laughing a little bit ago because I went and I found my case log, and this is my log of all the murders and all the
Wow.
craziness that I worked, and every one of those is a victim. All these little things here, and there's a lot of them. But here's my case log from back in the day, and
Lots of experience.
this is was my career, but you have impacted thousands of people. I mean, probably tens of thousands, to be honest with you, because your work of what you've done and what you continue to do. I mean, I know you, both of you, that if there was a dog available, even in Texas, you would have even said, go get that guy, no matter what. I mean, yes, the dog probably would have been lost, maybe, but we don't know in that situation. But here's the good news. You guys keep on doing what you're doing. And will you continue to come back to our channel and bring guys like Sean? Will you?
Absolutely.
And however I can help you, you just let me know. All your information is going to be downstairs, guys, below the link here. So get over to their channel. I know you have a YouTube channel, right? Fawn, you set up a YouTube channel?
We have a YouTube channel. It's more, we put videos on there that connect to our website. So
Okay.
we put a lot of there. We're very active on Instagram, but
Okay.
yeah, we have a YouTube channel as well.
What's your Instagram channel? How can they get hold of you on Instagram?
At Man Canine Dogs. So you type that in. Yeah, you type that in, and then we should come up on there. And we have a lot of our training on there. We post a lot of stories on Mondays and Tuesdays for our training with our maintenance training with our dogs.
Awesome. Training dogs on Instagram. Okay, so Manny, I'm going to pull out here, and then when you're done, just say thank you very much, and then I'm going to send everybody to Hawaii. Okay, my friend?
You got it. Thank you.
Okay, brother.
Okay, I want to thank you once again. It was a fantastic experience to share with you everything we've done with canines and handlers, but mostly we want to encourage you to keep training your dog. Dogs are amazing. We love them. I've been doing it for 40 plus years, and I can't get enough of them. So continue to love them and treat them well and respect them, and you're going to be a happy person because, like I said, it's a God gift. Dogs are amazing. They, even after training them and seeing them function out in the street, I'm still amazed at an animal that is given to us by a supreme being that is able to help us and not only self-crime, but as a companion and for health reasons and everything else. Anything else?
Yeah, we love dogs. We're located in Pacific Beach is where our facility is located at. Feel free to call us or go on our website. We have dogs for sale, and dogs have changed our life, so hopefully we can help dogs change some of your lives. Anything that you guys need from us, dog related, we can try to do our best to supply it. But thank you for having us on, and thanks everyone for tuning in. You guys are the best. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Hard working every day. I'm stressed out. 20 heaven, babe. No timeouts. Wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah. Make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away. You and me go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away.